We're so excited to make this video of your mom. I mean, she's
Yeah.
such an incredible person. So one of the first questions I want to ask, reach way back into your memory banks. You know, what are some of the first memories of your mom?
Oh, wow. That's a fascinating question. I mean, there are so many, it's really hard to narrow them down, from helping me study for, Cub Scouts when Dad was at sea, to, um, you know, taking me to some of my band practices and sporting, outings.
One of the things I mentioned was, you know, one of the things that I flash back on with my mother are such kind things that she did for me. There were little things. You know,
Yep.
it was making oatmeal in front of the fire in the morning,
Yep.
which now I know how hard that is to get
Yep.
together.
Yep.
Okay. So then, flushing out either those memories
Yeah.
or the memories that you have.
Yeah, a few other ones that kind of come to mind, and this goes back to her handiness, how crafty she is, and I'll let Dad expound on their wedding day stories. But I remember for one of Halloween costumes, she handmade a full costume for me, which was a Darth Vader Black Knight outfit, head to toe, with cufflinks and everything that went along with it. I think I was 7 or 8 years old when I dressed up, and I wore that a couple of years in a row, if I remember correctly. And obviously I outgrew it by the time I turned 10, 11, but it was something like, we didn't go to the store to buy things. She would make things with her hands and a sewing machine.
And so, what did that mean to you when half the kids probably had store-bought costumes, 75% probably had store-bought costumes, and you felt like you were a step above? I'm assuming you won.
Well, I mean,
it
was made to order. It was built to fit. I mean, and the fact that she took the painstaking time and effort to make that. At the time, I was probably too young to appreciate it, but looking back, and the fact that she made it with her hands, with love, really speaks to who she is as a mother.
You were talking about Cub Scouts and what that meant to you.
Yeah.
What specifically did she do, and what was your experience with that?
Yeah, as I was going through some of the junior ranks as a 7, 8, 9-year-old, and she was helping me study for a rank as Dad was stationed down in Pascagoula, Mississippi. I remember she was going through the book with me, going through some of the requirements to achieve a certain rank, and not a lot of mothers do that kind of stuff. So the fact that she would go through that and help do the outdoors activity type stuff and prepare me for that type of endeavor was pretty fascinating.
So what kind of a teacher was she? Patient, insistent, tough?
The former, and I think that's where a lot of my personality and tendencies come from. Just one, having seen how both of my parents interacted with my late sister Alexis, who was special needs with Down syndrome, and Mom is a very nurturing person, a very patient, temperate person, and a lot of my personality, I think, is drawn from that same. For the longest time, I always considered myself a rather temperate, nurturing, loving, hands-on educational person, in which I think drew from just watching her and how she interacted with people and with me and my sister.
Having a special needs child is such an intense experience. Now, I know so many people who are dealing with that. How do you think that changed your mother as a mother?
Yeah. For her and my father, in fact, I think they grew up very quickly. They really had no choice in the matter. I mean, when you're 21 and 24, 21, 23, I look at myself where I was at that age in my, at that stage in my life, and so many other people in this world. It really proved who she was, who they were. It tested their mettle, and neither of them quit. Neither of them backed down. They were presented with a life-altering challenge, and they had no option but to provide for her. and they took it head on. And I think that says a lot.
You were 1,000 years old.
I'm 45, and they were more grown up 20 years ago than I am now.
Oh,
I mean,
it allows
hello.
us to like
Yeah.
just goof off for
Yeah.
a long time and be completely self-centered.
They didn't have their 20s and 30s to quote unquote go find themselves and
That's
explore the
right.
world.
It's
That wasn't a luxury.
My generation. It's going to take us to our 50s.
So I think that's why they now in their 70s are enjoying their 20s, if that makes sense. You know, they're off traveling the world, seeing things, and enjoying the luxuries of what they had to forego to provide for their family.
That's right.
Yeah.
Such an excellent point.
Yeah.
So looking back with your sister, what were some of the most touching memories that you can call back to? You know, interactions with how they treated her, how your family operated every day.
Yeah, you made a good point. You know, going back to providing for Alexis and making sure she had as good a life, as quality a life as possible, and not being confined to the label of quote unquote handicap. We never used that term in the household. Alexis, even until her dying day, never considered herself handicapped. Don't take this the wrong way, being in a wheelchair, but she considered people like living in a group home, and she would talk about her handicapped friends that were with walkers and wheelchairs. In her mind, that was handicapped. She was not confined to the status quo of what is considered handicapped. And I think that really started with mom and dad.
And I don't know if there was ever a time where, and it would be completely understandable, that as a young person that you were embarrassed by the struggle, or, oh
Yeah.
boy, here we go. How did your mom handle that? And what did she tell you in terms of how to present her to your friends?
Yeah, that kids are tough. And that they never let that bother me. It was obvious when we were out, whether at the grocery store or out at a restaurant, people would stare. It's blatantly apparent. You can see it out of the corner of your eyes. And it wasn't an embarrassment for me. It was more angering. That really bothered me, that people would stop and stare at my sister. I was like, she's here to enjoy the same experiences that you are. Why would you take that from her? She's here to have a dinner, have a meal. Quit staring. I would never say that out loud, but it would bother me.
And that must have come from the vibe that your
Yeah.
father and your mother were giving you.
For sure.
Right.
Yep.
So when she passed, how did your mother handle that with you, with everything?
Well, I mean, it's any child. You're not supposed to bury your kids. And that was, I mean, she still carries it to this day. There's no question. We all do. But I think her more so than either. I mean, I can't speak on my father's behalf, but she carries it the most of the three of us.
Some people describe losing a child in the family as you lose the child and the parents, because the parents are grieving.
Yeah.
And so they go to a certain place, and then you're missing the missing family member, sibling as well. How did your mother handle still being your mom and going through that grieving?
I'm sure it was a challenge, because she still wanted to be the mother to me, but the human side of her, the parent side of Alexis, and the time and energy, the effort that she put into providing for her. I mean, and for such a long time. I mean, Alexis consumed a lot of time and energy of my parents, and I don't mean that in a negative light. I mean, just and to so abruptly have that cut off. It took a lot of time for her to figure out what that was going to look like.
And so how did she handle your grappling with losing a sibling? You know, I don't know if you remember anything she said that was uplifting, or just her presence, or...
Wow. Nothing particularly comes to mind. I mean, I just remember the three of us at the hospital having to make the very difficult decision to let Alexis go. I mean, she was on life support for 2 or 3 days, and you know, when you're the deciding factor, that's not an easy decision easily made.
How old were you?
29.
Moving into the current phase of your mom's life.
Yeah.
So she, you know, dedicated herself completely to the family for so many years.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, just year after year after year, becomes a rock star.
She is.
So what is that like as a son, to watch your mom just seem to kill it in every single thing that she does?
She casts a big shadow. Both of my parents cast big shadows. They are both the oldest of 4. They are the alpha in their respective households as kids. You know, they basically raised their 3 younger siblings. So for her, you know, being a, you know, kind of the third parent in a household, so to speak. I mean, she had her parents and they were very involved in raising the 4 kids, but, you know, she was the third option as a parent to her siblings, which I think, so from an early age, that's where I think a lot of her nurturing and parental intuition came from, and just being the alpha, being, you know, the leader of the pack, really lent itself to her future successes, from being a parent herself to her career, where, yeah, I mean, no question, she was the top banker in their bank. She had the largest portfolio in the entire bank, no questions. And it just goes to show that, you know, with her, and to use a quote from my dad, failure is not an option. I think that's a mantra they both hold on to very strongly. You know, they are both very successful, very driven, and very motivated people.
Can you think of the greatest family vacation you ever took together?
Oh.
I know you guys are big travelers.
From my youth, or as an adult, or a combination thereof?
Any.
I'll use 2. The one from my youth that really stands out was, I was 10 years old and we were in the process of moving from South Carolina up to the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area. Dad had gotten orders to Little Creek Amphib Base, and while in Charleston, he had befriended a Royal Naval officer. So we took 3 weeks to go over to England, and then with the British friends, hop the channel and go sightseeing through France and Switzerland and the French Alps, and skiing in the French Alps. So as a 10-year-old who had really never spent much time skiing or had never been to Europe before, that was an experience of a lifetime. It was very exciting. And we made stops along the way, you know, like the beaches of Normandy, and, you know, saw the world's largest toy store in London, Hamleys, something like that. Yeah, that was a pretty awesome experience for a young boy. As an adult, there are quite a few, but I think, you know, my parents have fallen in love with Ireland. I've had some lifelong friends that I've known for almost 25 years who are Irish. And in the last 10 years, I've introduced my parents to them, and they've kind of adopted them as their Irish kids. So, you know, Mom and Dad have gone to Ireland a couple of times without me, but we've gone together twice. And, you know, my mom has really been drawn to her Irish roots through those visits. And they've spent a lot of time, you know, through Ancestry DNA and other historic research to kind of go find their ancestral home and spend a lot of time there. So we've had some fun going to Ireland. In fact, a few years ago, our Irish friends were able to get us involved in the 4th of July parade in Ireland. And you may ask yourself, why are the Irish celebrating the American independence from the English?
Right.
The Irish don't like the British. Let that sink in for a minute. Any opportunity to give a little one back at the Brits.
Right. And it seems to me that every time you guys get a tour guide, they're like a friend for life.
Yep.
Whether it's a day or 5 days.
Yep.
And is that driven a lot by Madeline? I mean, is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think both of them. But I think it really starts with Mom. She, of the three of us, she is clearly the most extroverted of us. Everyone is a friend. No one is a stranger. She can strike up a conversation with literally anybody, and they become fast friends for life. Yeah, I mean, that's just who she is and how she operates. Like a perfect example that comes to mind was 7-8 years ago. She was on a plane, and there was a young man in a boot sitting cross-legged because his leg, the leg that was compromised was not the one that would fit in the aisle, so she offered to trade seats with him. Young man, a mile high, large, African-American boy. Turns out he's a linebacker for ODU football, and they became thick as thieves. She invited him and one of his football buddies over to our house for Thanksgiving shortly thereafter because they were here. He was from California, and he had no way to get home. Such good friends that eventually Dad hired him and his buddy to intern for us at our software company, all because Mom just took a flyer on striking up a conversation and offering her seat on an airplane.
Well, that does not shock me at all.
Right. That just speaks volumes of who she is as a person.
So just a couple more quick questions.
Yeah.
Can you think of the absolute funniest story that involves her? Something absolutely crazy she did, or something that you guys tease her about, or?
Wow. I think most of the ribbing is between Dad and me. We don't really pick on her all that much.
Well, that's refreshing.
I think out of
that's like, I wouldn't know what that's like.
I've got some photos of my mom.
So she like, well, we don't want to mess with Mom, or why was it that she?
I don't think it was that we avoided it intentionally. I just think with Dad and me being the boys in the house and just that, father-son dynamic. Or
did she do the ribbing?
Ribbing, antagonizing. Nothing is coming to mind off the top of my head. I'm going to look back and regret forgetting something, but she has a very light personality. It's not like she, we avoided it for fear of, retaliation. She was never the brunt of the jokes, I guess. The butt of the jokes.
For her.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
And so last question, if you could, in a word or two, just sum up what your mom means to you, or what she is, what would it be? I know that's tough.
That is tough. Yeah. Things. How much time do we have, right?
Right.
To kind of summarize her, I don't think one singular word would do it justice. Resilient, steadfast, loving. She embodies all of that, nurturing. Really, at the end of the day, when you look at the dictionary of the name mother, she embodies everything you would want in a mom.
Oh my God, that was so good.
Yeah.
Oh, this was fantastic.
Thanks.
Yes, fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, you're done.
Okay.
Oh, cool. The other benefit, we got him going first. He's not here to go,